Okay, so what we're going to be working on today is the basics of just making sure that we understand how to label congruent figures, which means figures that are the same shape and the same size. We just want to make sure that we understand how to label the parts of them correctly. Okay, first of all, I want to talk about the essential question. Now again, what the essential question means is what should I understand at the end of these notes? And as I'm going through the notes, what would be something that I need to focus on? Make sure that my thinking and my understanding and my learning are all focused on this. So on the lines in your notes, you want to write this down. How do I correctly and completely use geometric notation to label two similar or congruent figures? For today, we're going to be talking mainly about one thing, which is congruent. Okay, we're not going to be too focused on the similar, because when we talk about similar figures, it's the same idea. It's just the symbol is a little bit different. So instead of a congruent symbol, we have a similar symbol, which is just sort of that wavy line. Okay, so first of all, we're going to go back over a few things which are which are basics that we want to make sure we remember. First, the notation for similar is that symbol right there, which is sort of a squiggly line. The notation for congruent is an equal sign with that added on. And the other part that I want to make sure you remember is that when we talk about parts that are equal, okay, on a figure, we talk about parts that are labeled. So they will use one dash for those two sides being equal. If they want to say a second side, they'll use two dashes. For an angle, they may either use an arch like that, or they could also do an arch with a very small dash in the center. That's another notation that you'll see sometimes. But a lot of times they use more than one arc simply because it's hard to see 3 or 4 or 5 dashes in there if they have that many angles to talk about. And for a second angle, they may put 2 arches, like as shown in the example here. Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and apply this. So what we're going to say is we just want to make sure that if I give you two figures and they have congruent parts, that doesn't mean the shape itself is totally congruent. We need to get to that point and discuss whether or not that guarantees it's true, but for now what we can do is we can identify pieces that are the same. So first what I want you to focus on is the sides. This one we're going to do as a group and as a computer and you apparently, but later on I'll have you do them individually by pausing the program. If you need to go ahead and pause it for a second so you can label all the parts of the triangle, go ahead and do that. I'll wait 1 second. Okay, but otherwise I'm going to keep going. So first off, I want to make note of any sides that are the same. So I notice, hey, right off the bat, E and L, that's the same as I and T up here. Remember, they are line segments, so I can write this as EL and put a line over top of it. And up here I can notate that as T and I with a line over top of it as well. Okay, and that's my first one. Now notice I wrote TI on the thing. It uses IT. Remember, there is no right or wrong way. The only thing I would say is since I started at the corner that had the 2 arch angle, basically right here, since I started with that, it would make a little bit more sense to start with that up there as well, although I don't think it's going to really change anything. Okay, the second side that I want to note here, I'm going to use a different color to make it easy to see, is this side right here. D and L is the same as this side right here. T and M, and then we use that line over top. Okay, so DL and MT, again, because I started with the single arch angle, I start with the single arch angle when I call it the other one. However, it's not going to be marked wrong if you were to say TM instead of MT, for example. All right, next we're going to focus on the angles. Remember that I want you to practice using 3 letters for angles, so don't just be lazy and say angle E and angle I. I want you to practice the 3-letter angle method, remembering, of course, that the middle one always has to be the vertex. So if I'm talking about my green angle, I have to make sure that E is the middle letter and I are the middle letters. So first one, I can say it however I want, but the way I did in here was EDL, talking about the blue angle with the single arch. And that's the same as IMT. Again, following the same order as the other angles in the picture. However, if you switched it up and went TMI, that'd be fine. Okay, so moving along now, we have a second angle to talk about, which is the double green. So I could say DEL or LED and TIM or MIT. So those are the parts that are labeled congruent. My question for you, and I want you to think about this, is could you say the last angles, meaning, I'll put a note here, this one here and this one there, could you say that those two angles are in fact equal to each other? Okay, the picture doesn't label them, so I can't say they're congruent, but as we go forward with this, you want to start thinking about things you do know that maybe aren't necessarily labeled. Okay, so what you're going to want to do on this one is I want you to list all the congruent parts, that means sides and angles, and of course label the picture completely. So go ahead and pause it, give yourself a little bit of time to do that, and then hit play when you're ready. Okay, so in this case, the sides that are congruent are IN and SQ, and since that's the only side that's labeled, even though they look the same, you cannot call them the same. You have to be given the information. Moving along to angles, in this case I have two angles, WIN, which is the double green angle, and OQS, which is again the other double green angle, are equivalent, and angle IWN and QOS are also equivalent, which is the single blue angle. Okay, so same process as before, but now you can see instead of dealing with a figure that has 3 sides, a triangle, now we are dealing with a figure that has 5 sides. So we have to be careful, make sure that we're labeling based on the correct sides that are matched up. I use colors to help make it simple for you guys, but as you go forward with this on your own, you're going to have to remember that they're not going to have different colored things, so you're going to have to rely on your ability to pay very close attention to detail. So pause it, make sure everything's labeled, label all the same sides and all the same angles, and hit play when you're ready. Okay, so starting off with the sides, you can see we have 3 different sides here. We've got AU and OD, which both have the single purple. We've got AM and OL, which both have this double red lines. And finally, LF and M and N. Okay, those are all line segments that have 3 dashes on there. Remember that 1 dash versus 3 dash does not mean that 3-1 is 3 times as big. It's just a way of labeling something that we don't have a number to put on it. Moving along to angles, we have 3 different angles as well. First, USN, which is the double green, is the same as DKF, which is also the double green. AMN is the single blue arch. OLF is the other single blue arch. MNS is the triple orange angle, and LFK is the triple orange angle on the other figure. Okay, once again, I think this is the last one. Go ahead and pause the program, make sure you label it completely, and when you're ready to go, hit play. List all the sides first, of course, hit play, and we will go over the answer. Okay, so first let's start with our sides. You can see we have 2 sides labeled here. AF and UR are the same with a double red. IL and NT with a single purple. Moving along to angles, here we have 3 angles. IAF is the double green, and UR is the double green as well. FLI is the triple orange, and RTN is the triple orange. And lastly, AIL is my single blue, and UNT is my single blue on the other figure. So down below, you'll see there is a little survey for you to fill out. So please go ahead and take a second to do that. I know this was a very quick video, and it is something that should be fairly simple for you and hopefully in a lot of ways review. The only thing I want to make sure you're paying attention to is attention to detail. Take it slow. Make sure you do a good job. Otherwise, we'll see you in class tomorrow.